Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm drawing myself into Webtoon panels. This will be similar to my series where I draw myself into anime shows and Disney movies. I think it's really fun to draw in different styles. So because I read a lot of Webtoons, I thought it'd be fun to draw myself into them to see what I would look like in them. The first Webtoon I'm drawing myself into is a newer one, and it's called The Last Dimension. I chose this panel to draw myself into because I felt like I could fit myself in over here. So to help me draw in a very similar art style as the comic, I'm going to make myself a base. I liked Faye's pose, so I'm going to copy her and place her over here. I decided to flip her horizontally so my pose wouldn't be exactly like hers. Also, I wanted to have me be looking at Faye, so I'm going to use Alex's head and place it on this body. It looks kind of funny at the moment. I'm so sorry. Okay, so now that I have a base, I'll draw over it with my features. Here is a picture of myself if you don't know what I look like. Also, I wanted to say thank you so much to all of you that subscribed in my last video. It means so much to me. Like I mentioned, my channel's going through a bit of a rough patch, so it kind of needs all the help it can get. If you're not already, please consider subscribing and turning all notifications on to help support my channel. Thank you. Like I said, this is a newer Webtoon, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. I love the art style so much. The characters are adorable. The way the panels are drawn often feel really dynamic, and the backgrounds and the environments are so creative and well done. While I'm reading this Webtoon, I often find myself just staring at the art. Like, look how pretty this is. I love the use of color. If you want to kind of know what the story is about, the synopsis says, Faye's visions always come true, and they've gotten worse just before the new transfer students arrive. What could Faye and her new friends possibly do to avoid the doom that was promised? Good thing they're not regular kids at all. So yeah, all of the kids have some kind of power. I won't spoil them for you, but you can probably tell what Anne's power is. Since I'm drawing myself into this, I wanted to decide on what my power would be, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But for now, I am onto the line art. When I studied the line art, it seems like I could be able to mimic it with my G pen brush. The line art kind of has a lively feel to it, probably because the artist has to go fast to get the panels done in time. So when doing my line art, I tried to do quick and confident strokes to hopefully mimic the line art style. A lot of the characters have really fluffy hair, so when drawing my hair, I tried to make it kind of fluffy, and I made it curl up at the ends to help it look less flat. I also added the hair strand that kind of sticks up from my hair part. For the outfit, I was trying to think of what kind of clothes I wore when I was 10 or 11. And I remembered I was really obsessed with polo shirts around that time. I'm not sure why, I just really liked them. Even back then, I liked shirts with collars. So for the powers, there are 4 categories, and I have a hard time keeping them all straight. The characters sing a song that explains all of them. And in one of the categories, the characters mentioned illusions. And since I draw, maybe that could be my power. I can create illusions, but maybe only of things I've seen before, or that I can imagine in detail. If I can't picture the thing in my mind or remember the details, maybe it becomes really weird or distorted. And maybe because of this, I'm always really closely studying things. Kind of like how I do in real life. I'm always going around studying things. A lot of times I study lighting, or if one of my family members is in an interesting pose, I'll kind of study it. So for the shading, I had to do some experimenting to get the color just right. I ended up using a kind of periwinkle color set to multiply. It's common for shading in comics to all be the same color set to multiply. It makes the shading process much faster because you don't have to keep changing what color you're shading with. That's what I do in my comic. I most often use a muted magenta to shade things. However, if the story is more sad or dramatic, I use a muted blue, because it feels more depressing. Whereas the magenta feels a little bit more happy. Lastly, I colored and shaded in the eyes. For them, I applied the base color, added a lighter color in the bottom, and then a highlight. I really like the shapes of the hair highlights. They kind of have a zigzag sort of shape, but they also have a kind of smooth area depending on the shape of the hair. Oh, also, I felt like I looked a little too concerned in this panel. So I closed my mouth to kind of make me look less dramatic. So here's me in the last dimension. It was super fun drawing myself into this. Like I mentioned, I really love the art style, so it was a lot of fun to study it. So the next webtoon I'm drawing myself into is one of my most favorites, and it is Space Boy. If you often watch my videos, you've probably heard me talk about it a couple of times. The panel I chose is this one because I felt like I could fit myself here. For my base, I'm using Tammy from a different panel because I liked her pose. It felt like it suited me. So when I draw myself into anime, I try to draw myself into a scene from the early episodes so that there are no spoilers. But for drawing myself into webtoons, I decided to draw myself into newer chapters because a lot of times in comics, the art style will shift over time. This is very common because as artists we improve and our preferences change. If you look at the first chapter of my webcomic and then the newest chapter, things look pretty different. So yeah, I wanted to draw in the most current style for the webtoons. So you might be wondering why Space Boy is one of my favorite webtoons. The main reason is that the characters are so well written. They all feel very real, if that makes sense. Plus it has a mix of so many things. There's mystery, drama, romance, happiness, sadness, and the way the author touches on tougher topics like PTSD, anxiety, loneliness, and many others are just so well done. The writing is so good. Oh, so a little break from me gushing about how much I love this comic. Now I'm on to the line art. The line art seems to be done with a kind of textured brush, so I tried to find one that I had that was kind of similar. I'll put the name of it up on screen because I don't remember it at the moment. Okay, so another thing I love about the comic is the art. It's simplified but very detailed at the same time. It has a very nice mixture. I really love the backgrounds and how they are drawn. They kind of have a whimsical, dreamlike feel to them. And overall, the art just feels very cozy at times. Also, the characters' faces are drawn in very expressive ways. And I really admire how well the expressions are drawn. So back to the art. You may notice that as I'm working, it's a very low resolution, and that is because when uploading comics to Webtoon, you have to use a pretty low res file. And I'm also taking snippets of the panel for my computer screen, so that makes it kinda even lower. Sometimes when I'm doing these kind of edits, people want me to up the resolution, but that doesn't really work. I can't just up the resolution and make the original art have more pixels, but I do kind of give it a try in the next panel I draw myself into. For the shading of the coloring in this panel, I found it simple but effective. Instead of shading, it's more like a bunch of highlights are added to areas, like the hair and the clothes. I thought this was neat and kind of different from what I usually see. I really liked drawing and coloring the high-tech glasses. I almost drew myself with normal glasses, but then I remembered that pretty much everyone wears these fancy neckgear glasses. So here's me in Space Boy. The creator of Space Boy has a Patreon, and for one of the tiers you can be officially drawn into Space Boy. And honestly, I'm super tempted to join it, because it would be so cool to be officially drawn into Space Boy. The next webtoon I'm drawing myself into is Unordinary. I was super excited to do this one. So I actually had a really hard time finding a panel to draw myself into. I eventually found this one and thought that maybe I could go right here, but I do have to move John's speech bubble. For my base this time, I'm using this panel of Evie from a different chapter. Because I will be placed behind John and Blake, I outlined them with red so I know where I need to stop sketching. Like I mentioned, I had a very hard time finding a panel to draw myself into, and I actually struggled finding panels for like all of the webtoons. The reason is that panels are often very full with characters and speech bubbles, so there's no room for me. Also, if things are more zoomed out or it's a large group shot, characters are often less detailed or don't have faces. I also do this in my comic. It feels pointless to draw a face when they're so tiny, so I had to find panels that were close enough to the characters that they were detailed, but also had enough room for me to fit myself in. I was searching through Webtoon chapters for the different series for a pretty long time, and I was about to give up because I couldn't find any panels. But thankfully I did, and I am happy with the panels I was able to find. Also, this scene is taking place at an amusement park. John and Blake are fighting some hooligans. I imagine I am just a normal person walking through the park, and I came across this and it scares me. Unordinary is actually one of the first webtoons I started reading. I think I started reading around when episode 50 was released, possibly. So that would have been like 2017. So yeah, I've been reading this webtoon for a pretty long time, and I've really enjoyed reading it over the years. I love the character development, and the fight scenes are really well choreographed. I imagine it's not easy planning out fight scenes. I'm kind of glad I never had to do that. I think my favorite characters are John and Sarah. Sarah's awesome, and John's pretty cool. And I've also grown to like Arlo. Oh, and Blake's really cool. Blake is cool. And Ison. I like Ison. Okay, I like a lot of the characters. So people also have powers in this webtoon, and each power is ranked based on how powerful it is. I imagine I would be a low tier. I was trying to think what my ability would be. Since it's a low tier ability, I imagine it wouldn't be super useful. I started to think about what kind of ability I would want if I lived in this universe, and I decided on force fields. So Arlo, who is a high tier, uses force fields, and he's super powerful. He can make big ones, small ones, and make them appear basically wherever he wants. But I imagine mine would be way less useful. I could only make a small one around myself so that I couldn't be punched or hurt. I imagine that if I lived in this universe, I would die pretty easily. So yeah, I don't want to die. So I want an ability that would prevent that. So yeah, but I would only be able to protect myself. I wouldn't really be able to prevent bad guys from doing things or be able to help other people. So it wouldn't be like super duper useful. Oh, also about the whole resolution being low thing. For this one, I did try upping the resolution, mostly so it'd be easier for me to draw. But because it's only my art being drawn at the different resolution, it looked out of place. Like it looked really smooth. So I had to open the version that was at the normal resolution and put my art into that one so that they matched up in their pixeliness. So yeah, I didn't bother to do the whole higher resolution thing in the next webtoon I draw myself into, because it just kind of felt pointless since I have to size it down again. Oh, also here's me moving John's speech bubble. I decided to move it up above me. So here is me in Unordinary. I kind of like how my expression turned out. This is definitely how I would react in this kind of situation. Thankfully John and Blake are there. The last webtoon I'm drawing myself into is True Beauty, and I was kind of nervous for this one. The art is really detailed, and I feel like it was going to be kind of hard. So this is the panel I picked. I felt like I could squeeze in right here. For my base, I'm using Ju Young from a different panel, and she's the main character. Also, I apologize if I say any of the characters' names wrong. I keep looking up pronunciation guides, and different people keep telling me to say it different ways. So I try my best. But anyways, yeah, I was very nervous to try to imitate the style of True Beauty because it's very detailed and has a more semi-realistic style. The art is really pretty. Like, look how detailed these are, and they're so pretty. I love how they color eyes, and the hair is super detailed. It looks really nice. Another thing I wasn't sure about how I was going to do this is that this webtoon does have a semi-realistic style. So I felt like I needed to draw myself with my kind of facial structure, if that makes sense. According to my family, I have a kind of angular face and high cheekbones. So I tried to make my face less round and have more angles. Also, my lips are kind of thin, so I made my lips thinner when coloring them. Also, in this panel, what's going on is that a group of people walk into like this cafe where the main character and another character are, and they kind of start picking on them for not being like good looking, or they start saying bad stuff about their looks. I imagine I'm just a bystander in all of this. I'm probably just trying to buy a donut or something. Oh, also, I post my webcomic on Webtoon. It's called My Next Door Neighbors. And I also post it here on YouTube. YouTube gets the most recent chapters, and I actually just posted a chapter really recently. So if you're a fan of my webcomic, there's a new chapter out. But like I said, I do post on Webtoon as well. It's just it gets the older chapters. But it is slowly catching up to the newest ones. So yeah, if you want to read it, you can find it by searching My Next Door Neighbors here on YouTube or on Webtoon. So the story for True Beauty is basically, after binge watching beauty videos online, a shy comic book fan masters the art of makeup and sees her social standing skyrocket as she becomes her school's prettiest pretty girl overnight. But will her elite status be short-lived? How long can she keep her real self a secret? And what about the cute boy who knows her secret? So yeah, True Beauty is also one of my favorite webtoons that I've been reading for years. It's fun to see how the characters grow and change as the series progresses. I think my favorite character might be Sojun. I don't know, he's really grown on me over the years, and I kind of miss him since we don't see him much anymore. But I do really like Suho too. So for drawing myself into this panel, I decided to not do a sketch layer. Because it was so low resolution, I did only a line art layer, because I felt like I was almost doing high-res pixel art. But I do kind of wish I would have done a sketch layer because I felt like I needed to do a lot of tweaking and adjusting later on. Also, just to make it clear, Webtoon artists don't work at this super low resolution. They just export them at a lower resolution when uploading because that's what Webtoon requires. So for the shading, it is also fairly detailed. It has a good amount of cell shading and also some softer shading, like around the lips and the cheeks. Since my face is more angular, I decided to add more shading under my brow ridge. I tend to get a lot of shadows under my brow ridge in real life because it protrudes a good amount. It was very new and interesting drawing myself into the style of True Beauty, and it was pretty tricky. I'm not sure if I'm 100% happy with how it turned out. I don't know, I feel like some things maybe look a little bit off, but I tried my best. So here's me in True Beauty and all of the other webtoons. This was a lot of fun to do. I really liked getting to study other artists' styles and trying to mimic how they do things. Plus, I am a big fan of all of these. I wonder if any of the artists will see this. That would be kind of neat, but they probably won't. Before we end, I want to thank my wonderful patrons for supporting my work and what I do. Their support means so much to me. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!